Welcome to UC Berkeley's scoping session for the Kerr Campus Beach Volleyball Complex Environmental Impact Report. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Kyle Gibson, the Director of Communications for UC Berkeley Capital Strategies. Capital Strategies brings planning, design, real estate, and construction services to the UC Berkeley campus. We are architects, planners, engineers, construction specialists, and administrative personnel, all of whom work together to serve the campus community. I will be joined today by two members of our physical and environmental planning staff, Senior Planner Shraddha Navali Patil and Assistant Planner Timothy Green. I'd like to begin by noting that UC Berkeley is proactively engaging in planning around the COVID-19 pandemic in collaboration with our public health partners and the UC Office of the President. We are operating in accordance with all public health directives and all applicable orders regarding the public health emergency. Of direct relevance to the California Environmental Quality Act, on March 24, 2020, 5 days after issuance of Governor Newsom's Safer at Home, Stay at Home order, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research announced that at this time there has been no change to the deadlines, noticing, or filing requirements contained within the California Environmental Quality Act. UC Berkeley is operating in compliance with that directive and will continue to closely track any California Environmental Quality Act related developments that may affect our ongoing projects, including those currently undergoing environmental review. In light of these guidelines and the restrictions placed on in-person gatherings throughout the state of California, this afternoon we are hosting an online public scoping session rather than an in-person event. The purpose of a scoping session is to help notify the public that a lead agency, in this case UC Berkeley, is evaluating a project under the California Environmental Quality Act, commonly referred to as CEQA, and to solicit public comment regarding the type and extent of environmental analyses to be undertaken. The procedures for today's online scoping session are as follows. After a brief presentation that provides an overview of the proposed project, we will read aloud the public comments that were submitted to us by email following the instructions in the notice of preparation that was issued on August 5, 2020. The comments we read aloud will become part of the public record. All comments received by the deadline in the notice of preparation, including those read aloud today, will become part of the public record. The deadline to submit comments, as stated in the notice of preparation, is 5:00 p.m. on September 7, 2020. You can still submit comments to us by emailing planning@berkeley.edu or by US mail. There is no limit to the length of written comments submitted to us by email or US mail. However, they must be received by the September 7, 2020, 5 p.m. deadline. Please remember that all comments submitted will become part of the public record and will be responded to formally as required by the California Environmental Quality Act. I want to highlight that whether held in person or virtually online, a public scoping session is not a question and answer session. All comments received, whether to be read aloud today or in writing by email or US mail, will be considered within the draft environmental impact report anticipated to be released in early to mid-2021. Now, I would like to introduce Shraddha to give a brief presentation about the proposed Kerr Campus Beach Volleyball Complex project and the associated California Environmental Quality Act analysis and process. Shraddha.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Shraddha. I'm a senior planner in the Physical and Environmental Planning Department for the university. At the outset, I would like to acknowledge the current unusual circumstances we are in this evening because of COVID-19 pandemic, and that the university has made every effort to pivot to a virtual platform for the scoping meeting. Thank you for your patience and flexibility as we all adapt to these conditions. The university has put a tremendous effort into making this evening valuable to the public, and I stress that your participation has been and will continue to be critical to making this project successful. This scoping meeting is being held in a virtual format. This session provides a similar opportunity for engagement as would an in-person meeting. Similar to all scoping meetings, its purpose is to collect input on the content of the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR. Specifically, its purpose is to receive comments on a range of alternatives and technical analyses that would be considered in the draft EIR. Comments are most helpful when they focus on the potential environmental impacts of the proposed project, whether they're direct or indirect impacts. All comments received by September 7th, 2020 will be recorded in the EIR and will be considered equally. This scoping meeting is divided into 3 parts. 1, to present the Kerr campus beach volleyball complex project. 2, to provide an overview of CEQA. And 3, public comment. This is a live presentation, and we will read out the public comments that we received by 1 p.m. this afternoon. Please note that tonight is not the only time to provide comments. After tonight's presentation, you can provide comments by emailing to planning@berkeley.edu, and I will discuss the EIR process and schedule later in the presentation and emphasize other future opportunities for public participation and input. We are at the beginning of the EIR process, and it is anticipated to last another approximately 9 to 12 months. First and foremost, Chancellor Christ has made clear that gender equity is a crucial, overarching value for UC Berkeley that demands equitable facilities for its women and men student athletes. This project demonstrates the value UC Berkeley places on gender equity. In addition, the campus must also maintain with compliance with Title IX that supports and enforces that very same value. Presently, there are 2 beach volleyball courts located on the Kerr campus, and they are approximately 800 feet from the proposed project site. These courts do not meet Title IX requirements. The proposed project includes 2 components. 1, the conversion of the Kerr campus softball field from a recreational softball field into a recreational and intercollegiate athletic IA beach volleyball facility. And 2, in parallel, the university would partially demolish Kerr campus Building 21, which was a former Wilkinson Lodge with substantial deferred maintenance and seismic safety issues. This graphic shows the regional location of the proposed project. This graphic shows the project location within the context of UC Berkeley campus. As can be seen in the graphic, to the south of the campus park is the 50-acre Kerr campus and Smythe Fernwall property. The beach volleyball complex project is located within the Kerr campus. Here's a brief history and information on the Kerr campus. The Kerr campus, and moving forward I'll refer as CKC, is owned and operated by UC Berkeley. CKC contains student and faculty housing, a recreation center, tennis courts, conference facilities, childcare facilities, and other support functions. CKC was acquired by the University of California in 1982. Prior to this, the campus was the California Schools for the Deaf and Blind. The architecture is Mission Revival buildings dating from the 1920s through the 1950s and is organized around formal landscape courtyards. This is a historic campus, and the entirety of CKC is on the National Register. In 1982, the university executed a declaration of covenants and restrictions with neighboring property owners encumbering CKC, as well as a memorandum of understanding with the city of Berkeley, both of which commit the university to a site plan and land use program on Kerr campus for a period of 50 years. CKC was selected as the site for the beach volleyball complex project after lengthy evaluation of multiple potential locations conducted by the university. This graphic highlights university-owned CKC and shows the project boundaries within the Kerr campus. Referring to this graphic, on the north of CKC is Dwight Way, and the site for beach volleyball complex is located along the northern edge of CKC, highlighted in yellow and labeled as the proposed volleyball complex. on the southwest corner of Dwight Way and Sports Lane. On the southeast portion of CKC is Building 21, also highlighted in this graphic with a yellow outline. This part of the site is surrounded by a surface parking lot on the south and northwest, and the existing beach volleyball courts are to the north of it. The proposed project involves two components that are interrelated. It involves the construction of an IA and recreational beach volleyball facility with 4 beach volleyball courts, a support building with team rooms, locker rooms, restrooms, coaches' offices, and storage, new lighting and scoreboard, a public address system, and a lawn area. This project supports UC Berkeley's ongoing compliance with Title IX. The facility would be primarily used by female student athletes who participate in the IA Beach Volleyball program. In addition, this project involves the partial demolition of Building 21. The partial demolition addresses the seismic safety risk posed by the building pursuant to University of California seismic safety policy. It also complies with the 1982 Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions that UC Berkeley entered into with the neighbors of CKC. The covenants incorporate portions of a memorandum of understanding between UC Berkeley and the city of Berkeley that was entered at the same time. It provided that the buildings on CKC destroyed by fire, earthquake, or other disasters, or removed due to hazards or infeasibility of rehabilitation could be replaced with buildings of similar size. Moving forward, I will discuss both these parts of the project one by one, starting with the beach volleyball complex. These are current existing images of the site for the proposed beach volleyball complex. At present, this site is the existing recreational softball field. The existing recreational softball field is not a contributor to the National Register of Historic Places. This site is approximately 50,000 square foot area located along the northern edge of CKC at the southwest corner of Dwight Way and Sports Lane. This site is generally flat, sloping from approximately 410 feet in elevation at the southeast corner of the site to approximately 400 feet in elevation at the northwest corner of the site. Here is the plan of the beach volleyball complex. This is a proposed site plan, and I'm going to refer to this site plan to describe the details of this project. The north of this site plan is Dwight Way, and the eastern edge of the site plan is Sports Lane. At the center of this site plan are the proposed beach volleyball courts. It would involve the conversion of the existing grass and dirt softball field into 4 sand volleyball courts. The courts would include additional sand space around the courts to ensure player safety during practice and play. At the southern edge of the courts, a scoreboard 20 feet by 16 feet would be added to the site. Hardscape would be limited to a walkway around the courts, the area near the support building, the main facility entrance, and an ADA required path of travel. Now, west of the volleyball courts is a proposed support building. This will be a 3,600 square foot single-story support building for the complex. It includes restrooms, locker rooms, team meeting spaces, coaches' offices, and storage spaces. The support building would include clerestory windows to increase natural daylight and articulation along the facade, as well as incorporate court-side showers into the building's forecourt. The structure will comply with UC Sustainable Practices policy. Now, in the proposed project, the existing field lights would be removed. These existing lights provided lighting levels between 2-foot candles and 93-foot candles across the existing softball field. In the proposed site plan, at the 4 corners of the volleyball court stand space, 4 new 50-foot high light poles with modern LED light arrays would be installed. The night lights would illuminate the beach volleyball courts from 50 to 115-foot candles. From the court's edge to the property line, that is, the edges of this site plan, lighting levels would decrease from approximately 15-foot candles to 0.5-foot candles. Consistent with university best practices, lighting would be designed and calibrated to direct light at the courts and minimize spillover to adjacent areas. The beach volleyball complex would fit fully within the level portion of the existing softball field. The eastern portion of the lawn remaining after construction of the courts and support building would be used as a spectator area. Minimal grading would be required. No fixed seats are proposed. This would be similar to the existing softball, which also lacks seating. Some of the existing trees that surround the site may be trimmed or removed for safety. The campus's landscape architect, in consultation with an arborist, has reviewed the trees on the site. Up to 3 of the trees anticipated to be removed would be considered specimen trees, and replacement would be considered consistent with university policy related to specimen trees. All tree removal, specimen and other, would be conducted outside of the nesting season, consistent with university best practices. Besides the specimen trees, existing redwoods at the southeast corner and most of the trees surrounding the site would remain. The site would be secured by an 8-foot chain link fence. Construction is anticipated to begin in the fall of 2021 after project approval and would take place over approximately 12 months. Construction staging would occur within the proposed project site. Construction activities would generally include the following phases: demolition of the softball field, minor grading, trenching for utilities, construction for the volleyball courts and accessory structures, installation of landscaping, and installation of finishing features for the courts, paving, and architectural coating. This table compares the existing and the proposed programs for beach volleyball and other activities. As the table shows, there is no change to the competitive season for beach volleyball. The number of regular IA beach volleyball matches in the existing program was 7, and the proposed program are approximately 7 to 10, depending on program scheduling. There's no change to typical game days. There's no change to the expected spectator attendance. The number of night and televised games is proposed to be up to 7 to 10 per season based on conference and TV scheduling. Post-season play is proposed as up to 2 4-day events per season that will support regional and final NCAA championship rounds. There is no change proposed to the activities that use the facility. During the summer, which is June to August, the site would be used daily for youth camps operated by Recreation Sports and/or IA. All of these programs, aside from the special match events, currently operate at the proposed project site or other CKC sites today. There's no anticipated change in the hours of operation. In addition, the new facility would also be open to the broader community on a reservation basis, consistent with IA's current reservation practices. Moving to the next part of the project, which is Building 21. Here is some history of Building 21. CKC Building 21 was built for the California School for the Blind, CSB, in 1928, when it was constructed as a boys' dormitory and dining hall. Building 21 and other CSB buildings of its period were designed by the Office of the State Architect under George B. McDougall, and the architect was Alfred Eichler, who designed the bulk of the 20th century deaf and blind school campus. In the 1960s, it was given the name Wilkinson Lodge. Since 1979, Building 21 has stood vacant except for miscellaneous storage use. In 1985, its original northwest wing was removed for the construction of the adjacent recreation courts. This image on the right shows the northwest wing intact. Building 21 has not been occupied since 1997 since 1979, due to seismic issues and has been used for storage. Building 21 is identified as a contributor to the National Register of Historic Places, listed California School for the Deaf and Blind Historic District. And as the resource is listed on the National Register, it's also listed on the California Register of Historical Resources. And additionally, the CKC campus is a designated City of Berkeley landmark. This is a current image of Building 21. As mentioned before, Building 21 is located on the southeast portion of CKC and is surrounded by a surface parking lot on the south and northwest, and the existing beach volleyball courts are to the north. As part of the current seismic assessment initiative, Building 21 has a seismic rating of 5. All seismic ratings from 5 to 7 would require seismic improvements by 2030 per the UC seismic safety policy. The existing building exterior is generally in fair to poor condition. In part is heavily vandalized. The majority of its windows on the eastern portion are either removed, blocked up, or in failed condition. Its roof, likewise, in poor and partly failed condition. The exterior walls, windows, and roof of its westernmost wing, however, have been repaired for current storage uses. This slide shows a representation of the second floor and the third floor plan of Building 21. As seen in this drawing, UC Berkeley would demolish the eastern wing of Building 21 and either expand the existing parking lot on the site or plant landscaping. Please note that the same building area may be demolished on each floor. The partial demolition addresses the seismic safety risk posed by the building pursuant to University of California seismic safety policy. In addition, as part of the covenants, demolition of a building due to hazards allow for replacement with buildings of similar size. I would emphasize that the project is in its design phase and these are preliminary designs. The partial demolition and stabilization of Building 21 is anticipated to occur during winter 2021 to 2022 and would take place over approximately 4 months. Construction activities for partial demolition of Building 21 include slope stabilization, finishing, sealing of the remaining portion of the building, and paving to extend the adjacent parking lot. This ends the first section of our scoping presentation of the overview of the proposed project. As Guy mentioned before during the introduction, the purpose of this scoping meeting is to gather input on what should be evaluated and an appropriate range of alternatives to analyze in the EIR. This is intended to be a robust process to ensure that both UC Berkeley stakeholders and the surrounding community have ample opportunity to not only review information relevant to the campus's park, but to weigh in with meaningful participation. Input at each stage and at the early stage of the EIR process is critical to the success of the draft EIR, as the university considers and evaluates the potential environmental effects of the project. We are at the beginning of the CEQA process, and in addition to tonight, there will be many more opportunities for public involvement. I will provide a brief primer on CEQA, which is the state's premier environmental protection and disclosure law. CEQA was enacted in 1970 and requires public agencies to evaluate the potential environmental effects of a project. The purpose of CEQA is to consider and disclose to the public and decision makers the environmental implications of their actions, and increase public understanding of and participation in the environmental review process. Identify ways to avoid or reduce the potential significant environmental effects of these actions to the extent feasible through imposition of mitigation measures or alternatives. An important thing to consider is that CEQA requires an evaluation of a project's effect on the environment and not the environment's effect on the project. UC Berkeley is the lead agency responsible for preparing the environmental review for the project. Under CEQA, the lead agency is a public agency that has a primary responsibility for carrying out or approving the project. The university is both the project proponent and the lead agency. The EIR must be certified before project approval. CEQA does not approve a project or plan, even if the EIR is certified. An environmental impact report is one of CEQA's mechanism for identifying and disclosing potential significant physical impacts of a project. An EIR is an informational document that considers the environmental effects of a project. The EIR discloses the significant effects of the proposed project on the environment, identifies feasible mitigation measures, and describes potentially feasible alternatives to the proposed project. A project defined by CEQA generally has two components. First, an activity that requires a discretionary action by the lead agency, like approval. And two, will have a direct or indirect impact on the environment. UC Berkeley has determined that an EIR will be prepared for the proposed project following the outcome of CEQA litigation brought in 2019. The EIR will evaluate the beach volleyball complex and the partial demolition of Building 21 at a project level. As allowed under Section 15060 of the CEQA guidelines, UC Berkeley has not prepared an initial study and will instead begin work directly on the EIR process. As required, the EIR will focus on the significant effects of the proposed project and will document the reasons for concluding that other effects will be less than significant. Where significant or potentially significant environmental impacts are identified, the EIR will also discuss feasible mitigation measures to avoid or reduce those impacts and a reasonable range of potentially feasible alternatives. The scoping period is intended to solicit comments regarding the scope of the environmental analysis, so this is subject to change. The EIR will assess the potential impacts to aesthetics, to scenic vistas and resources, existing visual character and light and glare that may occur due to the proposed partial demolition of Building 21 and the proposed beach volleyball complex. The proposed court lighting will be assessed with a general illumination study to evaluate the potential impacts from light and glare to the surrounding areas, which will be evaluated in comparison to existing conditions. Potential impacts to cultural resources and tribal resources could occur as a result of proposed construction, partial demolition of Building 21, and ground disturbing activities. The impacts from the partial demolition of Building 21 will be assessed. The impact analysis will assess if the project would result in significant impact to buildings that contribute to the National Register. Potential impacts to archaeological and tribal resources will also be evaluated. A cultural resource inventory and evaluation report will be prepared to support the EIR analysis. Potential impacts related to conflicts with land use plans and policies adopted for avoiding or mitigating environmental impacts will be assessed. The relationship of the project with the 2020 LRDP and applicable covenants also will be discussed. Potential temporary construction and demolition noise and vibration impacts to sensitive receivers, such as residences in the vicinity of the proposed project, will be assessed, with modeling based on noise measurements taken at the project site and review of construction phasing and equipment usage. Noise impacts from the operation of the volleyball facilities will be analyzed to quantify noise levels from volleyball practices, volleyball competitions, including generators for TV trucks, public address system, and crowd noise, and other activities like summer camps that would impact noise-sensitive communities. Potential construction and operational traffic impacts of the project will be assessed with a qualitative transportation assessment. Impacts associated with trips generated from operation of the volleyball complex will be assessed in terms of vehicles miles traveled. In addition, the parking characteristics of the project area and surrounding neighborhood during events at the beach volleyball facility will be discussed in the impact analysis in relation to vehicular and pedestrian circulation. Let me reiterate, we are at the beginning of the EIR process. The university kicked off the CEQA process by hiring an environmental consulting firm, and it is anticipated that this EIR process will be a 9 to 12-month process. Please note that that is a representational timeline, and it could actually go further than that. I'd like to describe the steps so far. The notice of preparation for the EIR has been distributed, and we are at the scoping meeting tonight. The scoping period comment period ends on September 7th, 2020. We plan to publish the draft EIR early to mid 2021. The draft EIR comment period, which is a 45-day minimum, would be around from early to mid 2021. And we plan to publish the final EIR with response to comments mid 2021. Considering the final EIR certification, the proposed project approval would be around mid 2021. This scoping period is one of the opportunities to provide input in the EIR process. There will be other opportunities. So just to describe further future CEQA opportunities, there will be a notice of availability with the release of the draft EIR anticipated in early to mid 2021. Please check back on the university's Capital Strategies website for updates to the proposed project. The EIR will also include additional topics addressed by the CEQA guidelines, including growth inducement, cumulative impacts, and alternatives. The EIR will describe and evaluate a reasonable range of alternatives to the project that would feasibly attain most of the proposed project's basic objectives while avoiding or substantially lessening any significant effects of the proposed project. The no project alternative will also be evaluated as required by CEQA. The 1979 Dwight Derby Site Plan final EIR addressed land users on the project site at the time UC Berkeley took ownership of CKC in 1982. The EIR being prepared for the proposed project will evaluate whether certain mitigation measures from that final EIR should be modified or replaced with equivalent or more effective mitigation measures reflecting current CEQA practice and changes in CEQA requirements since 1979. Again, the purpose of this evening is to solicit community input on environmental issues to be studied in the EIR. All comments are an important part of either the planning and the environmental review process. Based on scoping comments, the university may adjust scope of the EIR as necessary, and all comments will be included in the draft EIR. After tonight, we will continue to receive public comments through September 7th on technical issues to address in the EIR and appropriate range of alternatives to evaluate in the EIR. Comments are most helpful when they focus on the potential environmental impacts of the proposed project. Comments must be received by 5 p.m. on September 7th, 2020. Please email written comments to planning@berkeley.edu. Use the subject Kerr Campus Beach Volleyball Project EIR. You may also mail your comments to UC Berkeley Physical and Environmental Planning. Attention Shraddha Nawali Patil, Senior Planner, 300 A&E Building, Berkeley, California 94720-1382. Thank you for your patience, time, and attention. And now I'll turn the presentation back to Kyle, who will provide details about public comment.
Thanks, Shraddha. In just a moment, Timothy, Shraddha, and I will be reading aloud public comments submitted for today's online scoping session. These comments were submitted by the public according to the directions in the notice of preparation. Those directions specified to email comments to planning@berkeley.edu by 1:00 p.m. today, and to include their full name and to give permission to UC Berkeley to read their comments aloud. The notice also specified that, depending on the number of comments received, we would be able to read the comments submitted up to 500 words. Please note that the comments we read aloud have not been edited by UC Berkeley. All comments received, whether to be read aloud tonight or in writing by email or US mail before the September 7 deadline, will be responded to equally as required by the California Environmental Quality Act. I want to emphasize that there is no additional weight given to comments we read aloud for today's online scoping session. If you would like to submit comments in writing, you may do so by U.S. mail or by emailing us at planning@berkeley.edu. And please remember the deadline to submit written comments is September 7, 2020 at 5 p.m. At this time, we will read aloud the 12 public comments submitted for today's online scoping session. And Timothy, would you please kick us off by reading the first comments?
Comment number 1, Nade-san Permal. While I support the development of the Women's Intercollegiate Beach Volleyball Facility, I want to make clear that the promise of access for the general student body must be put in writing to the recreational sports program and hours and times defined. Too often in the past, such promises, such as Memorial Stadium, have been hollow, and athletics has effectively reduced to the point of eliminating access to the former Kleberger Field, Strawberry Field, Underhill Field, and the Channing tennis courts. They have also reduced access to the recreational sports facility in the field house and in the Blue Gym and elsewhere. The general student body has had their recreational opportunities diminished with the compliance of the campus administration. Given the need for a student body of 40,000 students to be precluded from physical recreational opportunities for the needs of 1,500 students flies in the face of the values purported by the campus. Especially in a time when health considerations are of great import, it's time for the campus to restore its obligation to the general student community. Number 2, Carrie Dovzak. My daughter played beach volleyball for a California State University, so I was able to visit many facilities throughout the state and in nearby states to watch her play. Have always thought it was a shame that Cal did not have facilities that matched those of state schools, no less that of the school across the bay that shall not be named. Beach volleyball is an exciting sport that demands great strength, skill, and stamina from the young women who play it, not to mention that it has the added benefit of fresh air and sunshine sometimes. I support the plans to build the new facility at the Clark Kerr location. Number 3, Lisa Wall. In regard to the proposed installation of 4 sand courts at Clark Kerr, I am writing in support as a Berkeley homeowner and someone who visits Sports Lane and the Clark Kerr campus 50 to 100 times each year. I have heard that homeowners nearby have concerns, but I'd like to point out that the only thing that causes a lot of traffic to the site is the summer camp. Women's volleyball competition is already taking place at the site with an audience of perhaps 40 people tops. This occurs, 6 half-days per year? In addition, there used to be 4 sand courts on the property where the 2 tennis courts now sit for a number of years without attracting more than 12 to 18 people at a time.
4, Karen Kleiman. I'm a resident of Redwood Gardens, which is physically part of the same complex as Clark Kerr campus. I'm not against the construction of the new volleyball complex. However, I want to ask what will be done to mitigate noise pollution both during construction and when the construction and demolition of Building 21 is completed. I would also like to know at what times the games will be scheduled. The fact that there will be a public address and loudspeaker system is potentially disruptive, especially if there are night games. 5, Windy Knox Carr. I'm responding to your request for local input to UC's Environmental Impact Report for the proposed beach volleyball complex project dated August 5th, 2020, which we received in unmarked envelopes that looked like political spam in our mailboxes August 12th. I'm very supportive of Title IX and equity in women's sports, mediation, and amelioration efforts. However, I'm a resident of Redwood Gardens, 55 and older, and disabled housing at 2951 Derby Street, number 130, Berkeley, California, 94705 zip code, submitting comments on the scope of the EIR. Our building, 196 residents, staff, and the surrounding neighborhood will be directly impacted by both the construction and operation of this complex at least 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Outside are quiet hours of 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., 800 feet and less from our property line. Many of us, our residents, have special needs and considerations due to our age, health, and disabilities. University and construction traffic on Derby Street, noise from the Greek Theatre, quarter-mile away, football and sports complex pedestrians and parking already impact us. With noise, parking infringements, and dangerous drivers, cyclists on the streets and in our lots, on and off hours, trespassers, not wearing masks during a pandemic, littering, including feces and smoking, building vibration from heavy vehicles, etc., which we put up with because of the convenient location. Agreement of Clark Kerr School with Berkeley, UC, that our residents must be here, cafeteria, AC transit, and area access. However, the 50-foot light poles with modern LED light arrays, the area could accommodate 400 outdoor spectators. Some of the existing trees may be trimmed or removed. Noise from generators of TV trucks, public address systems, crowd noise, and other effects, including at least 12 months of construction and partial demolition of Building 21 directly east of our building on the Hayward earthquake fault, as well as either expand the existing parking lot, plant landscaping, access for construction activities via sports lane, and your promise to only assess, discuss, mitigate beyond 2 brief public input sessions, August 24, 2020, and Friday, September 7th, only accessible digitally by Zoom. At least half of our residents do not have online access or skills. Many are blind, deaf, are non-English speakers, etc. Really are leaving us out of this process to maintain our environmental quality of life, especially under federal, state, Berkeley, and UC policies under the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act 1990. 6. Deborah Morrison. My elderly mother lives in the adjacent Redwood Gardens Senior Housing Complex. The main entrance is on Derby Street. My mother lives on the north side of the complex, however, which is bordered on the east by Eastway Drive, which runs next to the Building 21, and on the north side by the road Southwest Place. The proposed project would partially demolish Building 21, which is near my mother's building. It also would add 4 volleyball courts at southwest side of the intersection of Dwight Way and Sports Lane. The plan seems reasonable. I'm concerned, however, about traffic, noise, and parking for the seniors living in my mother's building in Redwood Gardens, both during the project and after it is completed. My mother, many other residents in her building, their family members, and their service providers enter the Redwood Gardens complex from Dwight Way, taking Sports Lane past the tennis courts, turning right onto Southwest Place, and then immediately left into a small parking lot where Sports Lane splits into Eastway Drive and Southwest Place. My mother's mobility is limited. It would be very difficult for her to enter and exit Redwood Gardens using the Derby Street entrance. Many residents in her building have similar mobility limits, making reliance on the Derby Street entrance problematic. I hope the plan does not envision that seniors will enter and exit the complex exclusively using the Derby entrance. That is, that the Sports Lane to Southwest Place route is not hindered. Construction noise can also be a burden for seniors who are housebound, particularly during the pandemic, and may be struggling with physical illness, depression, and other ailments. I hope there will be mitigation efforts in place. Finally, I'm quite concerned about parking, especially short-term parking for residents in my mother's building and their visitors. Currently, the university has installed about 8 pay parking spaces on the only strip of parking available for those visiting Redwood Garden residents on Sports Lane just before it splits into Eastway Drive and Southwest Place. Redwood Gardens is a federally subsidized housing complex for low-income seniors. Many are food insecure. One may expect their visiting family members may confront similar financial challenges, particularly given the recent economic downturn. The parking fee for the only available spots on Sports Lane is not high, but is still an added cost at a time when many are financially insecure. Further, the parking fee is in effect for 21 hours a day. Street parking for 21 hours a day, with the other 3 hours designated as non-parking hours. This seems punitive and unkind. In Berkeley, street parking is free after 6 p.m. The seniors and their families already confront many daily challenges. I fear completion of the project will greatly expand the volume of visitors and of those seeking parking to attend volleyball games, removing the small amount of parking available for those visiting residents in my mother's building.
Comment number 7 from Phyllis Melandra. My particular concern is with the proposed demolition of the east section of Building 21. The issues are 1, noise, and 2, air pollution, possibly including asbestos as well as other particles. These will have an extremely negative impact on residents of Redwood Gardens senior housing, especially those like me who live on the east side of our building. My preference would be to simply leave the non-functional part of Building 21 standing. If it is demolished, please do not expand parking, but rather plant landscaping. Please clarify whether during winter 2021 means starting in January or in the fall, example October. Comment number 8, Diane Hero Rose and Wendy Knox Carr. Recently, UC Berkeley informed all Redwood Gardens tenants about 2 intended projects that are being planned for Kerr campus. And this notice to you will outline how both of these projects have the potential to compromise the quality of your life at Redwood Gardens in multiple ways. The first project is the demolition of the large abandoned structure that is across from the side bridge entrance of RG. Only the renovated front part of the structure will be left intact, and the remaining buildings that stretch to the end of the parking lot will be torn down. A proposal for pre-demolition inspection for asbestos content in the complex should be made a priority. This will severely impact apartments facing that structure for an extended time, with extremely loud noise, pollution, and other yet unknown factors. The winter months of 2021 is slated for this big demolition project to begin, which could be as soon as January 2021. To protect tenants' health and peace of mind during this process, proposing restricting working hours to between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. needs to be implemented. Please endorse this strict limitation of working hours to protect sleep and peace of mind during demolition. Even 8 hours is a great deal to bear. UC Berkeley has proposed expanding the existing parking lot by paving the empty space left by the demolition of the buildings, which would create a huge parking lot across from Redwood Gardens. This would subject tenants to numerous potential noise disturbances that come with very large numbers of vehicles using this new lot, such as car alarms going off at all hours, or loud music, motorcycles, tow trucks, loud mufflers, tailgate partying, etc., etc. Increased air pollution would add to the list of unacceptable repercussions. Please endorse rejecting all parking expansion near Redwood Gardens. The existing volleyball courts adjacent to Redwood Gardens continue to be a major disturbance for a large number of tenants. These courts are used by anyone, from early morning into the evening hours with very few restrictions. UC Berkeley wants them to remain. Oblivious of how their proximity impacts and erodes the quality of life, peace of mind, and health of many residents. Please propose their deactivation and returning the land to natural habitat. The second project is the construction of 4 beach volleyball courts at the existing softball field where Sports Lane intersects Dwight Way, which is being described in the 8-page environmental impact report that you received. It is yet another project that UC Berkeley intends to build that would add seemingly never-ending attrition of sounds, shattering the environment. One of the most intrusive is the growing number of UC Berkeley vehicles, all of which are equipped with the high-pitched backup alarm that are now occupying permanent parking in the lot adjacent to Redwood Gardens. Clark-Kerr campus is a fragile, quiet environment in between the above-mentioned activities. There is very limited traffic, and it has the potential to be an almost serene retreat compared to, and at this point, the remainder of this comment exceeds the 500-word limit for this scoping session. However, the comment will be incorporated in full in the draft EIR. Comment 9, Malcolm Tarlovsky. Redwood Gardens is a senior community of 196 living on Clark-Kerr campus since it was constructed after being mandated in 1986 to be present in the present location at 2951 Derby Street. In the past, UC Berkeley showed an extraordinary disregard for the occupants of Redwood Gardens by installing a skateboard facility directly across Sports Lane, a mere 25 feet from us. This has subjected a large portion of our community to continuous noise disturbances from this installation, which is ongoing. A second example of UC Berkeley's insensitivity to the Redwood Gardens community is the installation of 2 beach volleyball courts directly across Eastway Drive, a mere 65 feet from us. This facility is open to all people anytime and has players from morning to night, with the thump of the ball and the screams of the players disturbing a large number of occupants. The geography of the land in this area is a natural noise enhancer, with the high hillside bouncing noise directly back to Redwood Gardens and magnifying it in the process. Add to this the recent renovation of the front portion of the previously abandoned Building 21 on Eastway Drive, directly across from Redwood Gardens. I personally attempted to acquire information off the intended usage of this renovated building and was never able to receive any information about it. The reason for my inquiry was to prevent any new source of disturbance to the occupants of Redwood Gardens. What resulted was it becoming a staging area for UC Berkeley grounds, with a large dumpster of waste being a new source of disturbance by the piercing backup alarm of the truck coming to empty it in the early morning hours, waking many occupants. UC Berkeley pickup trucks are also now regularly parking adjacent to this building by pulling in head first, thus activating their backup alarms that are another source of disturbance. Another source of disturbance is that same parking lot that has recently become a paved lot. Before that, it was mainly just used by the tenants in UC Berkeley Residence Building number 19, which is adjacent to it. Now it is often full of vehicles, and the disturbance that comes with vehicles, as loud radio, noise from engine, faulty mufflers, and the most disturbing being vehicle alarms going off at all hours. I personally have had to track down a person who left 2 barking dogs in a vehicle and another whose alarm had kept me and countless others awake all night with an alarm going off constantly. I had to call UC Berkeley police to have it towed away and was left exhausted and with a headache in the morning, causing me to have to cancel a flight I had booked to Los Angeles. There was even a car that caught fire, and the dense toxic smoke penetrated our closed windows, and the fire took over an hour to be put. It is very obvious from your EIR report that the demolition of the existing abandoned buildings of. And at this point, the remainder of this comment also exceeds the 500-word limit for the scoping session tonight. However, it will also be incorporated in full in the draft EIR.
Comment number 10, Dennis Leo. The CKC softball field is currently the practice field for the Cal archery team. The archery team has been in existence for nearly 15 years, has won numerous regional and national awards in intercollegiate competition, and has sent athletes to international competitions as part of a USA team. The team of approximately 25 is around half women. The competition shooting distance is 70 meters. Have provisions been made to accommodate the archery team on the renovated field? Or have provisions been made to move the archery team to an equivalent field? Number 11, Diane Shavelson. I have lived in this neighborhood most of the time since 1994 and now live at Redwood Gardens on the Clark Kerr campus adjacent to Building 21. I make the following two requests. One, there is currently access from the parking lot between Building 21 and Building 19 east to the trail at the top of the Clark Kerr campus via a rough stairway which is located north of Building 20. I ask that the stairway remain or another at the location be put in. Two, I am very concerned about an increase in vehicle traffic on roads east and the north of Redwood Gardens if there is significantly more parking in the Building 21 area. Redwood Gardens is residence to approximately 200 seniors and disabled people who use entrances adjacent to those roads and are walking there. Many of these residents have impaired mobility, and it is very difficult and stressful to get out of the way of cars, so they will be in danger. Comment number 12, Star Alliance via Peter Dumont. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce the original Star Alliance, a nonprofit organization dedicated to universal civic values education in context of the university's NOP for the EIR. Star Alliance, founded in 1985, invented its name in 1986 for promotion of peace and values worldwide. Both founders, Peter Dumont and Ernest Saravo, are graduates of UC Berkeley. Mr. Dumont is a resident at Redwood Gardens since 2017 and maintains an office there. Regarding the beach volleyball complex project, representing a number of neighbors at Redwood Gardens, as well as myself and Star Alliance. May we say first, thank you for the annual goat show grass cropping technique and other good care of our beautiful microenvironment. May we suggest the following outline of friendly ideas and mitigation potentials. 1, mini park near 21. Dedicate a substantial portion of the area adjacent to the existing beach volleyball courts to park-like recreation for seniors and students. Include picnic tables, access and room for comfortable chairs and wheelchairs, and a grill, perhaps solar powered. 2, border landscaping near 21. Please put extra effort into tasteful landscaping at 21 to integrate nicely with the hillside and great stand of trees to the east. Perhaps request East Bay Mud to thin the eucalyptus regarding fire danger. Preserve south side steps or build new ones and a wheelchair ramp to the level area and paths above. 3, speed bumps and signage. Please install yellow painted speed bumps and better signage approaching the sharp left turn at the bottom of the exit road to Derby Street. Acute danger for pedestrians at the corner. Secure the sign at the corner of East Way and Sports Lane and include a prominent right arrow to Derby there. Install a more obvious left turn sign to Derby at the bottom corner of the exit road. 4, fixes. Fix the long neglected major pothole near the gray garage, the bent fence post, and perhaps the entire fence. Nearby the utility cover and the badly broken concrete where that driveway exits onto Derby Street. Please remove or replace all the dangerous broken glass in the old brick gym. Please level out the natural log bench that sits amid the 9-tree redwood grove at Sports Lane and Eastway Drive. 5, fencing at both sites and the upper track. Please consider more tasteful decorative fencing where feasible. Redwood strips, redwood frames, tops, posts, etc. Please consider creative upgrades to the fence area between the track and the otherwise gorgeous bay view. Why spoil this can't buy it view for the many visitors with an unsightly barrier right there? Isn't there some alternative, including view mounds or permanent step-ups a few feet back from the fence line, so people's eyes will see over the fence at least? 6, lighting. Consider as feasible, gold light versus harsh, bright white lights, at least for lights other than actual play action lights. 7, cultural resources. Please consider lending the vacant Derby Street house and/or garage for immediate turnkey relief for Star Alliance historic preservation needs, now seriously cramped and overloaded.
And that final comment is going to conclude today's online scoping session. I want to thank everyone who joined us live, and I would please ask that you remember that the deadline to submit comments is September 7, 2020 at 5 o'clock p.m. And that all comments received before that deadline will be responded to equally as required by the California Environmental Quality Act. As we close, we'll put up a slide with the email and US mail addresses for submitting comments by that deadline. And again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to join us live. We thank you for joining us, and we hope that you will have a good evening. Thank you.